Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Very warm welcome to this Monday, 9th October 2023 morning Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam discussion. Today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 10, Text 22. Before we discuss on this verse, let's sing Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe. Jai Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Jaya Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य श्रोत्र शतश्री श्रीमती श्रीमान ग्रेस शिलाई से भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, नामाचार्य शिला हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय, मथुरा धाम की जय, जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, मायापुर धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, Samved Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu Krishna Matirastu. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 22. Bodhyamānasya ṛṣibhir ātmanas jighṛkṣataḥ karṇau ca nirabhidyetāṁ diśaḥ śrotraṁ guṇa-grahaḥ. Bodhyamānasya ṛṣibhir ātmanas jighṛkṣataḥ karṇau ca nirabhidyetāṁ diśaḥ śrotraṁ guṇa-grahaḥ. Bodhyamānasya ṛṣibhir ātmanas jighṛkṣataḥ karṇau ca nirabhidyetāṁ diśaḥ śrotraṁ guṇa-grahaḥ. Word by word. Bodhyamānasya, desiring to fight. Ṛṣibhir, by the authorities. ātmanas, of the Supreme Being. Tat, that. jighṛkṣataḥ, when he desired to take up. karṇau, the ears. Cha, also. nirabhidyetāṁ, became manifested. diśaḥ, the direction or the god of hair. śrotraṁ, the power of hearing. guṇa-grahaḥ, and the objects of hearing. Translation. By development of the desire of the great sages to know, the ears, the power of hearing, the controlling deity of hearing, and the objects of hearing became manifested. The great sages desired to hear about the self. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, by advancement of knowledge, one should try to know about the Supreme Lord, the summum bonum of everything. Knowledge does not mean knowledge only of the laws of nature or physical knowledge, which are working by the direction of the Lord. The scientists are eager to hear about the physical laws working in material nature. They are eager to hear through the medium of radio and television about things taking place far away from them on other planets. But they should know that the power of hearing and the instruments for hearing were given to them by the Lord, for hearing about the self or about the Lord. Unfortunately, the power of hearing is misused in hearing the vibrations of mundane affairs. The great sages were interested in hearing about the Lord through Vedic knowledge and nothing more. That is the beginning of oral reception of knowledge. Before we discuss on this verse, let us offer some prayers. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Shreshtham Manamapi Shachiputram Matra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Murupurim Mathurim Goshthavati Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuda Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Adadandas Trunam Dante Idam Yachaha Punaha Punaha Shriman Rupa Padambhojam Dhulisyam Janma Janmani He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Tarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 22. bodhyamānasya ṛṣibhir ātmanas jighṛkṣataḥ karṇau ca nirabhidyetāṁ diśaḥ śrotraṁ guṇa-grahaḥ. By development of the desire of the great sages to know, the ears, the power of hearing, the controlling deity of hearing, and the objects of hearing became manifested. The great sages desire to hear about the self. So we have been discussing in these verses how the different sense organs and the sense perception was being developed. In this particular verse, it is mentioned about karṇau, about the ear. Karṇau ca nirabhidyetāṁ. So karṇau is the ears, cha also nirabhidyetāṁ, became manifested. So the manifestation of ears. And what is the reason for the manufacture or the creation of the ears and the power of hearing, the object of hearing and the controlling deity of hearing? What is the reason that all of these four different aspects came into existence simultaneously? The reason is bodhyamānasya ṛṣibhir. Bodhyamānasya, desiring to understand. Who? ṛṣibhir, the authorities, by the authorities. About what? ātmanas, of the Supreme Being. So this is the first three words in this verse is extremely important in terms of understanding what is the reason the ears and the sense of hearing, the object of hearing, and the controlling deity of hearing appeared simultaneously. The reason is so that one can understand ātmana. So understanding one's original constitutional position as an eternal part and parcel of Krishna. Mama eva amsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanātana. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that all the living entities are eternally my part and parcels. Sanātana, eternal. So this understanding, how can we have this understanding? One of the most important ways in which we can have this understanding is when we hear about these topics. Śrotavya kirtitavyascha dheya pujyascha nityada tasmad bharata sarvatma bhagavan ishvaro hari. As it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Srila Shukadeva Goswami mentions to Parikshit Maharaj, he is addressing Parikshit Maharaj as Bharata. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Śrotavya Kirtitavyascha Dheya Pujyascha Nityada. So this is the beginning is Śrotavya. Śrotavyānidini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrasa Apashyatam Atmatattvam Graheshu Grahamedinam. Another thing that Srila Shukadeva Goswami mentions to Parikshit Maharaj is that, unfortunately, in the conditioned state of existence, the living entity is hearing thousands and thousands of different things which has no relationship with our real understanding. The real understanding is that of us as an eternal part and parcel of Krishna. So Śrotavyādini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrasa. Thousands and thousands of topics one will hear in a particular day or during the lifetime. But it has nothing to do with our understanding of who we really are. Why apashyatam atmatattvam? So when we don't understand the atmatattva, what is atmatattva? Atmatattva is this understanding of our eternal existence. So first of all, it has to be heard through the ears. And when it is heard through the ears, one is able to absorb those sound vibrations and understand what is being said. And understanding is the first step in terms of actual, practical following and application of what we are hearing. So if we don't understand in the first place, then where is the question of application of that knowledge? Application comes after understanding. So here, and for understanding, we need to hear very intently with an desire to get into the depth of what is being said. That is really extremely important. Shrinvatam swakatah Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridiyantastho hi abhadrani vidunoti suhritsatam. So this is when we are hearing about Krishna, Shrinvatam swakatha Krishna, the talks of Krishna. So Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the topics that is discussing about Krishna. So it is from the devotees and unalloyed devotees of Krishna, for the unalloyed devotees of Krishna, and by the unalloyed devotees of Krishna. So that is the significance of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Amalam Puranam, it is mentioned. It is the most spotless Purana. Why? Because it is being discussed. What is being discussed is totally the transcendental topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We see in the beginning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam about how Vedavyasa was feeling a little bit not satisfied. So, Kim va Bhagavata dharma na prayana nirupita priya paramahamsa nam ta eva hi achyuta priya. So then when he was discussing this with Srila Narada Muni, his spiritual master, then he got this idea that Kim va Bhagavata dharma na prayana nirupita. That this Bhagavata, I did not describe the pure pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that was the reason why he was feeling unsatisfied. Even after compiling all the Vedas, Upanishads, and so many different scriptures, Vedavyasa was not feeling satisfied. Then when he was discussing with Narada Muni, then he understood that I need to now create a scripture which purely describes about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna. Priya Paramahamsanam Taeva hi Achyuta Priya. So this discussion that we are doing of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is very dear to the Paramahamsa devotees of the Lord. What is meant by Paramahamsa? The supreme swan. One of the qualities of the swan is that if it is given the milk, it only takes the most important part of the milk, and it leaves the non-significant part. So this is called Saragrahi. Saragrahi. Sara Agrahi. So means one who is after the most important aspects of whatever is being said. So that is what is Paramahamsas. The Paramahamsa, the supreme swan devotees of the Lord, they are always finding the Lord everywhere. They're looking for the Lord everywhere. When we are looking for something, we will definitely find it because we are looking for it. So this is the wonderful position of us as the human beings. We have got that wonderful capabilities that other species of life doesn't have. So we can not only can we understand what is being said, but we can also in a very steadfast way, we can follow the path and we can get to the destination. This is the wonderful potency of the human form of life. Nrideham adyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam gurukarnadharam mayanukulena nabhasvat eritam puman bhavadbhya nataretsa atmaha. So it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that this human form of life, nrideham adyam sulabham sudurlabham. So in the human form of life, one can get to the highest spiritual attainment, that is going back home, back to Godhead. So that's why it is called sulabham. It is sulabham or easy, the body in which one can easily attain the spiritual abode of Krishna. That's why it is Sulabham. That body is easily helping one to go back home, back to Godhead. But it is Sudurlabham at the same time. It is very rare. So Durlabham Manusham Janmam, as Srila Prahlad Maharaj mentions in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, that this human form of life is very rarely attained. Sudurlabham. And it is like the ship that helps one to cross over this ocean of birth and death. Plavam Sukalpam. Guru Karnadharam. The spiritual master is like the captain of the ship. Mayanu Kolena Nabhasvateritam. The air that comes and guides the ship in a particular direction is what the favorable direction of the wind. That is what the Supreme Personality of Godhead is providing. Splavam Sukalpam Guru Karnadharam Mayanu Kolena Nabhasvateritam Puman Bhavadbhyana Taret Sa Atmaha. So it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that even after all these wonderful prerequisites are already ordained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unfortunately, if one does not cross over this ocean of birth and death, that person is unfortunately misusing this wonderful human form of life. So, Puman Bhavadbhya na taret sa atmaha. If with all those conditions, what are those conditions? That one has got this human form of life, then one has this ship which is helping one to cross over the ocean of birth and death, and that is this is what is padam padam yad vipadam samashritaye padapallava plavam mahat padam punya yesha murare. So this is what the lotus feet of the Lord can be, that ship that helps one to cross over this ocean of birth and death. That is when one surrenders onto the lotus feet of the Lord. Samashritaye padapallava plavam mahat padam punya yesha murare. So this is the Mahat Padam, the great, wonderful lotus feet of the Lord. And Krishna's another name is Murare, one who is the demon of, who is the enemy of the demon Mura. So that is Murare. Ari means the enemy, and Mura is the demon Mura. So Krishna is the enemy of the demon Mura. So Krishna's name is Murare. Kamsare. Kamsari. So these are all the names of the Lord. And one of the wonderful things about all these pastimes is that even the demons get purified when they are coming in contact with Krishna. This is the wonderful nature of the association with the Lord and his name and his pastimes and his form and his entourage, everything related to the Lord. Atha Shri Krishna Namadi na bhaved grahyam indriye, as it is mentioned in the scriptures, that everything related to Krishna, his name, his form, his pastimes, his entourage, his paraphernalia, everything related to Krishna, na bhaved grahyam indriye. It cannot be understood by blunt material senses. So here in this particular verse, we are seeing that the ear is getting manifested. When the ear is getting manifested, that is that the power of hearing, the controlling deity of hearing, and the objects of hearing are getting manifested simultaneously. So then this is what is getting manifested, and this is on the material platform. So when we are on the material platform, what we are consuming is matter. So to consume the actual name of Krishna, the spiritual transcendental potency name of Krishna, sevon mukhehi jivado. So the only way one can reach that spiritual stage of transcending the material ears, the material sound, the material existence, is when one is rendering loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Seva unmukha. Unmukha. Unmukha is very important, very eager. So tatra laulyam api ekalam mulyam. Janma koti sukritir na labhyate. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yadi kutopi labhyate. So this is mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami. He's saying that if the love for Krishna is available somewhere, let me go and buy it. Kriyatam yadi kutopi labhyate. But what is the price that I have to pay to get the love for Krishna? Tatra laulyam api ekalam mulyam. So laulya is the greed. It is just like in the conditioned state of existence, one is greedy to obtain material things, to become a great person. So in the contemporary context, in this age of Kali, one is considered great if one has got lots and lots of followers, millions of followers, billions of followers. Then one is considered a great person. And then one is getting lots and lots of money through the sponsorship from advertisements that they get when they have millions of followers. Then through that money, they have wonderful luxurious life with palace-like buildings and hundreds of different types of wonderful cars and so many different things. Then one can think that one has arrived. One has made a mark in this universe, in this planet Earth. But one of the things about all this is that it is all, unfortunately, in the external state of existence. It is based on the bodily platform, the platform of mind. And therefore, even though it might be the greatest kind of happiness in the material sense, unfortunately, inside one will be totally hollow. The reason why one will be hollow is that the original existence, the original bliss comes in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. So one might have billions of followers, one might have billions of dollars, one might have the most luxurious life in this whole planet Earth. But if one internally is not in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, unfortunately, shrama eva hi kevalam. So it is mentioned, it is just a hard labor. It might give one that satisfaction of being the most famous, the most rich, the most opulent. It will give one the sense of false ego. It will propitiate the false ego of the person to an extent that one will be considering oneself as famous as Krishna. So then, unfortunately, in that situation, one is if one is not in the devotional frame of mind. But if one is in a devotional frame of mind, it does not matter. That's why it is called ahaituki apratihata, yayatma suprasidati. So it cannot be checked under any circumstances, apratihata. And it is costless. It does not have any cost. That is savai pumsam parodharma yato bhaktir adhokshaje. That is the loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who cannot be understood by blunt material senses. Adha krita akshaja. One cannot be seen by blunt material eyes. Krishna cannot be seen by the material eyes. One needs to have that eyes anointed with love for Krishna. Prema anjana churita bhakti vilochanena. Then santas sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti. Then the saintly person always sees Krishna within the heart and everywhere. There is no moment when the pure devotee is not seeing Krishna. Every moment. And therefore, there is no a pure devotee can be going through in the material sense, the worst stages. But because the mind is totally absorbed at the lotus feet of Krishna, there is no, one is totally oblivious to any kind of ups and downs in the material circumstances. One is totally absorbed. So when that absorption, and that is why it is called Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto. With the name of the Lord, the form of the Lord, when one is remembering the Lord and his pastimes, one is immediately in the spiritual world. Immediately. There is not even a fraction of a second when the difference in time, because spirituality, the spiritual world, is there when we are totally surrendered onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what we're saying about Mahat Padam Punyesham Murare. Then this Bhavam Buddhi Vatsa Padam Param Padam 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 Yad Vipadam Natesham. So this world is called Bhava Ambudhi. Bhava is this constant cycle of birth and death, and Ambudhi means ocean. So this ocean of constant cycle of birth and death, it becomes Vatsapadam. So that ocean becomes like the water in the hoof print of a calf. One easily can cross over that ocean. And Padam Padam Yat Vipadam Natesham. So actually in this material world, at every step there is danger. Why is there danger at every step in the material world? Because one is living in a state which is totally contradictory to one's own original state of existence. So what is one's original state of existence? One is eternal, never born, never dies. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. At any point in time, one is not taking birth and one is not dying. Nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya. There was never a time in the past when we did not exist. We know we are existing now. Never a time in future when we will cease to exist. Ajaha, we are unborn. Nityam, shashvatoyam, we are eternal. Purano, we are the oldest. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. When the body gets destroyed, our original existence remains. So this is the original, the real existence. And until and unless we are in that state of existence, practically, experientially, not just theoretically. Of course, theory is initially very, very important. And that's why this ear, the manifestation of ear, as it is mentioned in this verse, is extremely important. One of the examples that the acharyas give about the significance of ear is that if someone wants to wake up at an earlier time in the morning, one keeps some kind of alarm. And then what is the alarm actually? First of all, which sense is alarm coming and helping the person? That is the ears. So the alarm sound is coming into the ears, and then the person is waking up. So similarly, it is mentioned that when one is hearing the transcendental vibrations of the holy names of the Lord, Namna Makari Bahudha, Nija Sarva Shakti. So all these wonderful, innumerable names of Krishna, each and every name has got total potency in it, 100% potency. Nija Sarva Shakti. Shakti is that energy, the potency. Tatrarpita niyamita smarane kala. And then there is no hard and fast rules where, when, at what place, in which circumstance one should be chanting the holy names of the Lord. There is no hard and fast rules. Any circumstance, any place, any time, one can chant. Niyamita smarane kala. Etadrashi tava kripa bhavan mamape durdevam idrisham ihajani nanuraga. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions in Shikshashtakam, that, oh Lord, you have given us this wonderful costless mercy, Tava Kripa Bhagavan. But unfortunately, so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is talking from the state of a conditioned existence. And he's saying that, unfortunately, Mama Durdaivam Idrisham Ihajani Nanuraga. How unfortunate I am that I am not developing attachment to hear your names. I do not have anuraga. So anuraga is the love and attachment for hearing the holy names of Krishna. So this is, so how does one, Srila Prabhupada actually gives an example of how one develops the taste to hear about Krishna. So initially, maybe in the conditioned state of existence. And what is the conditioned state of existence? When we are identifying ourselves with the blunt material senses, with the blunt ears, the blunt eyes, the material ears, the material eyes, the material nose, the material tongue, the material touch. When we are engaged in that material aspect, what is happening is it is only interested in the senses coming in touch with the sense objects. Yehi sansparshaja bhoga. Sansparshaja. So sparsha is that contact. So when the senses are coming in touch with the sense objects, there is certain kind of impulses that are being generated. And those impulses can either be pleasing or they might be unpleasant, depending on what the accumulated different samskaras are. Samskaras is the experiences that one has experienced in innumerable previous lives. Depending on what kinds of experience one has been attached to, one continues that journey, life after life, life after life. And therefore, it is so important that somehow or other one develops attachment to hear about Krishna. Yena tena prakarena mana Krishne niveshet. Sarve vidhi nishedasyor etayor eva kinkara. So it is mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami that some way or the other fix your mind on Krishna. Yena tena prakarena. All the other rules and regulations are subservient to this main rule. And that main rule is somewhere or other one should fix the mind on Krishna. Because when the mind is fixed on Krishna, automatically one will get that purity that the Lord has. Yeah, because the mind is the only most important tool that we have in terms of our existence. Because wherever the mind is, one is there. Even though physically one might not be there. But if the mind is somewhere, one is actually there. So the mind has got that. Therefore, Krishna actually mentions in Bhagavad Gita, man mana bhav. Krishna says that give your mind to me. Mad bhakta, become my devotee. Mad yaji, mam namaskuru. Offer your prayers to me, offer your obeisances to me. Mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. Krishna says that surely you will come to me, Arjuna. And this is the truth. And I'm telling this to you because you are very dear to me. Pratijane priyosime. So therefore, this is what is mentioned. Yena tena prakarena mana Krishne naveshet. Some way or the other, fix the mind on Krishna. And here, so there are different ways by which. So one way is that the mind is automatically getting fixed on Krishna. That is the highest state of existence, where one is totally naturally the mind goes into the lotus feet of the Lord. Naturally, the mind is remembering the pastimes of the Lord. That is one's own. That is the real state of existence. But unfortunately, because one has been taking birth after birth since time immemorial, there has been a lot of covering that one has, and because of that, that natural affinity for Krishna does not happen. So then, how does it come into existence? Srila Prabhupada mentions about the example of someone suffering from jaundice. When they're tasting something sweet, they get the taste as if it is a bitter taste. Actually, it is sweet, but because they have the jaundice disease, it feels as if that sweet is actually bitter. But one of the ways of coming out of that bitter experience is to keep tasting the sweet. And then once there will come a time when the real sweetness of the sweet will be tasted, rather than the bitter taste which is coming because of the diseased condition. So Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas actually give this example in terms of how one can come to one's own original spiritual state of existence. So initially, yattadagre vishamiva pariname amrutopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma jnana prasadajam. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita about what is the happiness in mode of goodness. So the happiness in mode of goodness initially might taste like a poison. Yattad agre vishamiva pariname amritopam. But if one keeps on practicing, one will know that it is nectar. So initially one probably might not have attachment to hear about Krishna. But if one keeps on hearing about Krishna, there will come a time when all those hridyantastohi abhadrani vidhunoti. So each time when one is hearing about Krishna, Krishna's names, pastimes, paraphernalia, entourage, everything related to Krishna. Atar Sri Krishna Naam Adi, starting with name, everything else of Krishna. So what is happening is hridyantastohi abhadrani vidhunoti. Every time when one is hearing, one is getting cleansed of all the impurities that has been accumulated since time immemorial. Slowly that cleansing process is taking place. And then we are continuing that satam prasangat mama virya samvedo. As it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, that then one is in association with those devotees of the Lord who are wanting to listen about Krishna, hear about Krishna. So that is satam, in the association of those devotees who want to hear about Krishna. Prasangat. Prasangat is talking and hearing. Machchitta madgat prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayanta shamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. This is the situation of the gopis of Vrindavana. The mind is always fixed on Krishna. Machchitta madgat prana. Their whole life is dedicated in terms of service to the Lord. So the gopis, even though they are doing the household work, they are the married ladies with family and everyone looking after the family, but their mind is always thinking about Krishna. What is Krishna doing now? What is Krishna doing now? Every moment. So this is the Machchitta Madgat Prana, Bodhayanta Parasparam, always talking about Krishna and being totally oblivious to everything else. Even though they're doing all their household work in a very nice manner, but whenever that free time is available, the mind automatically is going into Krishna. That is what tasmatvam yuddhasva yasho labhasva jitva śrotraṁ bhunktva rajyam samriddham maya vaitena vihitam purma eva nimitta matram bhava savyasachi. So this is what Krishna mentions to Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, that Arjuna has to keep doing his duty. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yuddhacha mayarpita mano buddhi mame vaishyata samshaya. So Krishna mentions to Arjuna that at all times you remember me and fight towards her. And someone might say that if I am doing my duty nicely, how can I remember the Lord? That's fine. So it's not expected that when one is doing something, some duty, at exactly that moment one will remember Krishna. No, one can do the duty in the best possible way, and then there will be some time that is available, some time where one is not doing the duty. Immediately the mind should go and fix at the lotus feet of the Lord at that time, immediately, and then that is what is ma manusmara yuddhacha. That is what Krishna means by remember me and fight. So before Arjuna is fighting, Arjuna is remembering the Lord and saying that, oh Lord, I am your instrument. You can use me as you want in this war. And then he fights the war. When he is fighting the war, he is just fighting the war. He's not thinking of Krishna. But of course, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna was personally present there with Arjuna. So this was the wonderful nature of Krishna. And this Krishna is personally present with anyone who is remembering Krishna. And who is not remembering Krishna, he is still present. But the challenge is that if one is not remembering Krishna, one is consciously not associating with Krishna. So that is the challenge is on the part of the conditioned living entity, because Krishna is always there with the living entity. Upadrashta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara Paramatmeti cha Apyukto Dehesmin Purusha Para. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that he is present as an overseer and a permitter. So within the heart of all the living entities, Krishna is there as Paramatma, the super soul. So he is overseeing all the activities and then he is giving the permission. Upadrashta Anumanta cha. He is a maintainer, Bharta, Bhokta. He is the actual enjoyer. Maheshwara. He is the supreme Lord, the great Lord. Paramatmeti cha apiyukto. So is called Paramatma, the super soul. Dehes mean Purushaha Paraha. Within the body, there is this transcendental person. That is Krishna in the form of Paramatma. So Krishna, and this is a wonderful nature of the Lord, that the living entity, because of their minute independence that they have, the living entity unfortunately can go in quite wrong directions. Like if we look at the demoniac pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidur asura na shaucham napi chacharo na satyam teshu vidyate. So it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by Krishna that a person who is asura, who is demoniac, they do not know what to do and what not to do. So unfortunately, because of the covering, that covering is really very strong. Krishna mentions what are the types of coverings that the living entities have. So, dhumena avritam vahanir yatha adarshana malena cha yato bhena avritam garbhastata tenedam avritam. So Krishna mentions that there are three different kinds of coverings. He gives a simile or a metaphor of the different types of coverings that the living entities have. So he says that first type of covering is like that of dhumena avritam vahanir, like the smoke covering the fire. That is, if the fire becomes very strong, the smoke automatically dissipates. So that is one type of covering, which is the covering in the mode of goodness. Then there is adarshana malenacha. So the other one is where the dust is covering the mirror. That means that is like a covering in the mode of passion, where one needs to do a good bit of work to clear the dirt in the mirror. And then there is yatho benavritam garbhas. So that is like the embryo in the womb. That type of covering, the metaphor given is the covering, very strong type of covering. That is, and unfortunately, someone in a demoniac state of mind is unfortunately in that state of covering. Yatho benavritam garbhas, tata tenedam avritam. So that is the covering of a person who is unfortunately in a demoniac state of mind. Very hard covering. So, but the wonderful nature and the costless mercy of Krishna is such that Krishna is present even with that person as the super soul. But unfortunately, that person's covering is so strong that even though the super soul is constantly guiding, he has made up a point that is not going to listen to the super soul. So unfortunately, that is why it is said pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidur asura. So a person in the demonic state of mind does not know what to do and what not to do. So unfortunately, they would be doing what should not be done and not doing what should be done. So totally, opposite direction in terms of the actual doing of activities. So here in this particular verse, we'll come back to this understanding here. Bodhyamānasya ṛṣibhir ātmanas jighṛkṣataḥ. So desiring to understand, the ṛṣibhir are the authorities, ātmana of the Supreme Being. jighṛkṣataḥ. So that when he desired to take up. So the main reason, we can very clearly understand here, the main reason why ears became manifested was to understand our self and our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the main reason all the senses and the mind and everything else is existing is in order for us to delve deeper into our original existence. It's somehow or other, what is happening is we are um, externalizing ourselves through the senses, and we are always situated in that external sense. We're not going internally. So when there is any kind of experience that is coming in through the senses, we have to try and understand who is actually this enjoyer. To whom is this enjoyment coming? And when we try and find the source of enjoyment, we will know that it is not this this false ego that is the actual enjoyer. It is Krishna is the actual enjoyer. Bhoktaram yajyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shanti mrichyati. So we'll understand that the actual existence is based on the existence of that dehi, the proprietor of the body. If the proprietor of the body is not present, the body will not do anything. The body will be dead. So, as Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, dehina asmin yatha dehe. So there is the presence of the proprietor of the body within the body. Therefore, there is kaumaram, yavanam, jara. There is this childhood, youth, and old age. Tatha dehantaram prapti. So Krishna says that similarly, one has to give up one's body. Dhiras tatra na mohyati. A sober person does not get bewildered by these changes that are happening. And therefore, Krishna says to Arjuna in the beginning itself, Ashochan anavashochastvam prajnavadam shabhashase gatasuna gatasumscha nanushocanti pandita. O Arjuna, Ashochan anavashochastvam. You are lamenting for something that does not require lamentation. And you're talking as if you're a pragya, you're a wise, learned person. Actually, a wise person does not lament either for living or for dead. Gatasun agatasumscha nanu shochanti pandita. Pandita samadarshina. So this is vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shuni chaiva shvopakecha pandita samadarshina. So the real person who has surrendered himself onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead knows that all the living entities are eternally related to Krishna. They're eternal parts and parcel of Krishna. The only thing is they're wearing different kinds of dresses, but internally they are all eternally related to Krishna. The dress is the body, as Krishna very clearly mentions in Bhagavad Gita, Vasamsi jirani yatha vihaya navani grinanti naroparani tatha shariraya vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. So Krishna mentions that just like the person takes off their old cloth and puts on a new cloth, similarly, the living entity takes off its old body and puts on a new body. So this constant cycle of birth and death is the is caused by our conditioned mind. But when the mind is fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord, the wonderful state here is that even though one might be taking birth in the material world in that state, one will still be totally oblivious to the material existence, because this is what Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions in the 4th verse of Shikshashtaka. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadishakame, mama janmani janmani ishware bhavata bhakti rahitu kitoi. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that, O Lord, I don't want money, dhanam, na janam, I don't want followers, na sundarim, I don't want a beautiful partner, kavitam va jagadishakame, I don't want anything material. Then the question might be asked, okay, then if you don't want anything material, then maybe you want liberation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Mama janmani janmani ishware. He says that I don't want even liberation. Let me take birth after birth, but let me always be ishware bhavatat bhaktir ahaituki tvai. So let me have this costless, loving, devotional service to you, Krishna. And it does not matter whether you want me to grant liberation or not. Mukti dadati karichit smana bhakti yoga. So it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that Krishna sometimes might give liberation but he very rarely gives loving devotional service to himself. Because when Krishna gives loving devotional service to himself, he it's like he actually sells himself to the devotee. It's unbelievable. That's why Krishna says, "Tam stadaiva bhajamyaham." So bhajantya, bhajantananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. So a Mahatma, a great soul, is constantly ananya, without any stop. One is rendering loving devotional service to Krishna. And Krishna says that when someone is surrendering onto me, I am also rendering loving devotional service to such a person. So that reciprocal relationship, the reciprocity, and the reciprocity from the Lord is unlimited. From our perspective, the conditioned soul's perspective, the whatever love one would give to the Lord would be limited. But when the reciprocal love from the Lord comes, it is unlimited. There is no end. There is no beginning and there is no end to the love that the Lord provides. That is the wonderful nature of being Krishna conscious. When one is Krishna conscious, so first of all, one has to be conscious. And this verse is helping us understand how we are conscious. We are conscious because, first of all, we have the deity, the proprietor of the body within us. That is the most prominent and the only cause of our consciousness. But then, in order to use that consciousness, we have all these different types of senses that we have. And here, the sense of hearing has been described in this verse. So the hearing, and what is the reason the hearing has been developed? Bodhyamānasya ātmanas, to desiring to understand our original spiritual existence. So tad jighṛkṣataḥ karṇau cha nirabhidyetāṁ diśaḥ śrotraṁ guṇa-grahaḥ. So by the development of the desire of the great sages to know the ears, the power of hearing, the controlling deity of hearing, and the objects of hearing became manifested. The great sages desired to hear about the self. So if we look at the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes the Bhagavad Gita in the beginning itself, and he says that by advancement of knowledge, one should try to know about the Supreme Lord, the Samam Bonam of everything. In Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned. So this is the verse where Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that it is adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam etad jnanam iti proktam yadato ajnanam anyatha. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that the real knowledge is adhyatma jnana, the knowledge of our spiritual existence. That is the real knowledge. Nityatvam, always. Tattva jnanartha darshanam. So understanding the real truth of our existence. Etad jnanam iti proktam. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that this is the real knowledge. Yadato ajnanam anyatha. And anything else other than that is ignorance. So the real knowledge is the knowledge of our eternal existence. And everything else, and unfortunately, in the contemporary context, in this material world, and since time immemorial in this material world, somehow or other, because we have got this material body which is made up of matter, we are always attracted to matter rather than to spirit, which is a real conundrum, because our actual existence is based on spirit. If the spirit was not present, no one would be listening. The ears does not have any value. The ears, even though there might exist ears, but it does not have any value if the consciousness is not present. So the actual hearer is the consciousness. The actual sayer is the consciousness. But one of the wonderful things here is that the consciousness. This is what is Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ya pashyati tat atmanam akartaram sa pashyati. So actually, all the work is being done by the modes of material nature. So we are in mode of goodness. So we are discussing this verse of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. If we are in mode of passion, we'll be attached to something material, gaining something material. Mode of ignorance will be totally lazy and indolent. So everything is happening because the modes are interacting. So yah pashyati tathatmanam akartaram. So the dehi, the proprietor of the body, is constantly in touch with Krishna and is not doing anything else other than loving Krishna. So with that, I would like to conclude this discussion. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Govinda, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namah Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे सर्वं श्री कृष्णार्पणमस्तु कृष्णे मतिरस्तु हरे कृष्ण।